Hi, welcome to Radio 4's Consumer Programme. Today, how criminals can trick their way into your WhatsApp account and use it to con money out of your friends.
I was devastated. Wes was the first one to call me. And I can't tell you how upset. And then you do that rewind of what you did.
If your PC is using older versions of Windows, Microsoft is phasing out the security updates. We'll tell you what you need to know. And we want to know, what is your worst DIY disaster?
I tried to pull a shelf one day and I dig into deep and the electricity went off.
Oh no, oh no.
And my husband nearly killed me.
We'll be talking about that later, so please share yours. To get in touch about your DIY disaster or anything else, email us please, you and yours at bbc.co.uk, or text us to 84844. First, a warning about how much can go wrong when you try to book accommodation online, however careful you try to be. This is Ali Wilson from Morecambe. She got in touch with you and yours about her experience using booking.com for a trip away.
I was going down to stay in a property in London on the 16th of July to see Stranger Things in London as a treat for me and my friend. And it was 2 bedrooms and it was very close to the theatre, which is what we wanted. So yeah, booked it and thought everything was fine, paid up front. And then the actual property sent me an email saying that I needed to pay a security deposit. And they gave me all kinds of phone numbers and their WhatsApp and their email and various other things. And I just felt wary about it because it just seemed a strange email.
What was the rental and how much was the security deposit?
The rental was £416 and the security deposit was £300, which I thought seemed an awful lot for one night.
And did you have to pay both of those things up front?
Well, the thing that I was worried about was I paid up front for the apartment and then I got this email from the apartment saying I had to pay £300. I was really worried when I got this message. So I went on the booking.com app, so it's on the record, and I asked them, should I pay this £300? And they said, yes, you should. They didn't say, oh, be careful, or we're not sure about this, or it's up to you. They said, yes, go ahead and pay it. Otherwise, I would have asked for my money back and said, I'm not going to stay in this place because it sounds a bit dodgy to me. It was purely because booking.com said it'll be okay that I did it.
How did you make the payment, Ali?
And I think that email was outside of booking.com, which at the time I probably wasn't aware of. They gave me the account and the sort code to transfer £300. So I just transferred it via my debit card.
And tell me what happened when you and your friend arrived in London and you went to put your stuff in this place.
Well, we arrived in London about 12 o'clock and we contacted them to see if we could get in earlier and didn't get any message, and then rang again and then gave up until 4 o'clock, which is I think when was the entry time. Got this person who just kept saying we couldn't access the property because the finance department hasn't viewed the security deposit, has no proof it's gone in. And I kept saying, well, you have a screenshot of it going in, so how don't you have proof? And eventually the line went dead and we couldn't get through again. So at that point we got rather stressed and tried to find somewhere else and found the Travelodge at Covent Garden. So we went to stay there, and booking.com said they would refund that money and were very sympathetic at the time.
And the people at Covent Garden Travelodge, had they heard of anything like this before?
Yes, they said that the previous weekend they'd had 3 people coming in who'd booked a property and had not been able to access it, just the same as me. So it must be going on, whether it's those properties or other properties, I don't know. So it completely destroyed the evening. Whether or not the property exists, I still to this day don't know. But they hoped they would refund me.
So tell me what happened then when you got home and you tried to chase up all this money that you had paid for this apartment that you never got to stay at.
Well, I had many twos and fro's with booking.com, but they said, yes, they would pay. And I thought, oh, that's great. But there was a difference in price between the Travelodge and the flat. And they paid for that. Oddly enough, they paid for it in euros, not in pounds. So I got a bit less than we should have got. But I was happy with that because it meant we were refunded for that. And then I said, what about the £300 deposit? And they said, well, that's up to the property. So you contact them and see where you get with that. So I did, and they did nothing. So I kept getting back to booking.com and they kept saying they were chasing them up. In 5 days they would send it. And then I got another email from the property saying all this, the Swift, they wanted my Swift details and back details and they would definitely refund me. And then everything just went dead. And I contacted booking.com, and for the last few weeks, at least 2 or 3 and probably longer, they just ignored me now. They've given up on me. No matter what I said to them, I was threatening them with all kinds of things. It's been stressful, and I've still not got my £300 back.
I know that since we contacted booking.com, they have been back in touch with you.
Yes, very interestingly, after not hearing from them for weeks, I got an email today saying we're very sorry, and the media outlet has been in touch with us, and we will look into this, and we'll definitely make sure you get your deposit, and if they don't pay, we'll pay. But I honestly don't believe that till I get the £300 back in my bank account. But it's a lot more positive than it was before. But I will only believe it when I see it in my bank account.
So that was Ali Wilson. Well, since we spoke with Ali, the people she booked that apartment with have called her and they have returned that £300 deposit. The apartment seems to have been taken off the booking.com site since we got in touch, though, although Ali has been complaining about it for weeks beforehand. Booking.com says that although the people who advertised the apartment had successfully hosted previous guests, it will review the claims being made regarding damaged deposits and take appropriate action. Booking.com apologised to Ali for what they called the unpleasant experience she'd had, and they said it takes verifying listings extremely seriously and has multiple controls and checks in place before a listing becomes bookable. Kath Chireda is from Which, and last week Which called on the regulator Ofcom to investigate whether Booking.com is doing enough to combat fraud on its platform. And Kath, hi, and thank you for coming on. In that case that we just heard from Ali, we can't say for certain if that was a scam or just really bad service, but did it sound familiar to you?
Sure. So we've noticed there's actually been lots of Booking.com scams in general that have been flagged to us at the moment. And this particular one seems to be an increasingly popular and sophisticated one. But, in general, when it comes to Booking.com, I mean, I've never heard of being asked to pay a deposit. Typically, when you book on there, you'll pay up front for a slightly discounted rate, or you'll reserve the space. But if you are asked to pay a deposit, we'd definitely suggest being wary, especially in the case where you've already paid up front for the property. But confusingly, you look at Booking.com's website, and they mention that guests may have the option to pay a deposit. And in this case, Ali was absolutely right to not be sure and to not trust it. But the fact that she then went to Booking.com asking if she should pay the deposit, and they told her to, it's really disappointing.
Yeah, you wonder what more she could have done, really.
And also, when we managed to look at the property page before it was taken down, and we did notice that there were some other reviews that suggested a similar experience. So this isn't the first Booking.com heard about this property potentially being suspicious. So yeah, the whole thing is just concerning and problematic.
Ali doesn't know if that property even exists. This business of turning up somewhere and you can't find the place and you can't get any sense out of the people you've booked it through, does that happen a lot?
Sure. So we've actually seen other situations where people turn up and the property isn't even real, or it's someone else's house. I mean, Booking.com, when we've gone to them about these fake listings, they've told us that most weren't scams or just hosts that failed to update their availability. But this isn't always the case. We've had people who have found out that their actual homes have been on Booking.com, and then they've only turned out when unsuspecting guests have knocked on their door and asking to come in for their holiday. But if this happens to you and you've made this booking, you should certainly contact Booking.com straight away to report it to get some help. But what we've heard from people who have flagged it to us is that they've actually struggled to get in touch with the person, and then said that it was an AI chatbot, which is obviously frustrating and not very helpful in the moment. So that's why we think Booking.com should have a dedicated customer service line to protect their customers in these kind of situations.
And is that what you want from Ofcom? You want them to impose that?
Sure. Well, I mean, there are several things that we want from Ofcom. We want them to take responsibility and promptly refund people who have been scammed. We think that accommodation providers should have to provide proof of identity. Booking.com should be, proactively investigating and removing listings, and beyond that, making it easier for people to report places that they think are scams. And when these reports have been made, they should be investigated and removed if that's the right decision within 24 hours of being reported. So I think Booking.com need to be doing more and taking more accountability to making sure that their customers are protected from scams on their site.
They responded to your research by saying they're not the only platform targeted by scammers, and that cybersecurity is a top priority for them. Obviously, they're a very popular platform. Loads of people use it without any problem. What would you bear in mind to avoid the sort of nightmare that Ali has had?
Sure. So when you're looking at property, and this kind of goes for anything, not just holiday homes, but always look at the most recent reviews. Don't look at the most helpful, because that can be manipulated to kind of make it look as if they've had more positive reviews than they've actually had. Also, give them a quick Google or other search engines to see if anything comes up on other sites like Trustpilot. So making sure that the reviews for these holiday homes are kind of across the board getting the same quality of experience. And if you're looking at the house listing and you're unsure, we recommend using Google image reverse search. So you'll take a quick screenshot of the pictures and you upload it on Google. There's a little image icon on the right hand side of the search bar, or there's a site called TinEye you can use, and that can let you know if these images have potentially been ripped from other sites, as that should set alarm bells ringing. But also, increasingly, you need to keep an eye out for unnatural looking pictures that could be AI generated, because that is what scammers are using too. You want to make sure that any website you're using is legitimate, make sure they have a social media page that kind of resonates and is the same as what they're saying on other pages, and the classic witch mantra, or if the deal seems too good to be true, then it probably is. So make sure you do your due diligence and research to make sure you're not unfairly parting with your hard-earned cash.
Kat Chireda, thanks so much. The government is in the process of reforming energy performance certificates. They're the legal documents that rate the energy efficiency of homes on a scale from A, the most efficient, to G, the least efficient. They're important because you need an EPC to sell or rent out a home, and there are plans to force landlords to get all their properties up to a C rating or better by 2030. The unhappiness with them is that the ratings don't rise the way you might expect. Some people who've invested heavily in making their homes greener have found their EPC ratings have fallen as a result. Michael de Podesta got in touch with us. Now, he spent £60,000 upgrading his end of terrace house in Teddington in West London. And Michael, thank you for coming on. So just to introduce you properly, you're Michael de Podesta, a chartered physicist, formerly of the National Physical Laboratory, where you specialised in the science of temperature, so you know your measurements. And I know you worked in 2 phases updating your home. So you first got it to an EPC rating of B, and that's no mean feat for an old house, because your house was built in the 1920s. So tell us what it took to achieve that, the B.
Good afternoon. So the first thing I did was to put in some triple glazing. That was easy to agree with my wife. That was very straightforward. Then we did some external wall insulation. That was a big job, very expensive. Very time consuming, and then we had some solar panels installed. So that was at the last point when the first EPC was done.
So then you have this other push to make it even better, and you put in more solar panels, you put in a heat pump. When you called the assessors in, your EPC went down to a C. Now, when you challenged the company, they said it was a mistake and gave your B rating back, and the ratings company then offered to refund their fees. I mean, more widely, what do you think all this says about the EPC rating system?
Well, when I went into this, I just didn't think about it. I thought an EPC was an EPC. But I just don't know what to believe. I don't know what to trust. And I think the assessors coming round just that they're charging £30. They're being paid £30 or something to do an EPC, and it's just not enough for the work involved. So I don't think it reliably reflects the state of the property.
So you must have understood, you get points, don't you, when you get an EPC? So you must have understood the whole way the points system works. So when you did that last bit
No,
of...
I didn't understand the way the point system works. I work on... I don't really worry about it. I had this EPCB, and I thought, you know what, this house is extraordinarily efficient to run. The bills, all the bills for heating and everything last year came to £160. So it's crazily efficient, very low carbon emissions. I thought, well, surely it should have an A. And so I just thought, I'll get an EPC and I'm sure it'll say A. And then it actually came down and said C.
Horrible. What a horrible experience. Well, let me bring in Stuart Fairley. He runs the UK's largest accreditation scheme for these energy assessors. His company's called Elmhurst Energy. And most UK EPCs are produced using its systems, including Michael's. So Stuart Fairley, we get a number of complaints here at You and Yours from listeners who replace a gas boiler with a heat pump and then find their energy performance certificate rating doesn't go up and sometimes goes down. Explain, if you could, why that can happen.
Thank you for having me on. The easy answer is that, unfortunately, the methodology by which the energy assessors is based on price, and electricity is more expensive than the mains gas. So often what we're finding is people who are replacing the gas boiler with something which is obviously very, very energy efficient in Michael's home for the heat pump or any electric, and due to the fact it's price, the rating will go down, which is counterproductive to the messages about being energy efficient and saving carbon, etc. So that's the underlying issue. Is the methodology just needs to keep up to date and make sure that it's always as current as it possibly can be.
So that's the reason why the government went out to consultation on it and why it tells us it's still looking at the replies it got back. But to go back to Michael's case, the assessors here made a mistake when they downgraded his house. Now, last year, Which investigated and found cases where the assessors got basic facts about a house wrong. What checks are in place to make sure they get it right when they come out to inspect?
Well, I mean, the first instance was that actually, obviously, having a chat with that energy assessor, which obviously Michael's done in his case, which would always encourage that people, because the details are on the certificate, to have those questions. We need more Michaels. We need more people looking at these things to ask those questions. So obviously, then, if they do make mistakes, it is it's an assessment of somebody's property. So the good news is that just follow what the EPC says. Obviously, in this case, it's been replaced with a B. And in the vast majority of the cases on the Which investigation, which we were also heavily involved in, by the way, it was these type of events that was occurring consistently. It's this dilemma that the country has about switching to electricity, which at the moment has high prices, but is really, really good for carbon emissions.
Doesn't your own organisation spot check the quality of work?
Absolutely, yes. So we run audits across all of the members that we have, and those audits will go looking for issues. Or obviously, if we also get complaints from members of the public who have had one, we'll also always audit those as well. So we're independent of the energy assessor. We're trying to arbitrate for the truth, so that the physical certificate at the end is following all the right guidance. So yeah, we do lots and lots of audits across all of our members.
And how did your rate of problems match up to the Which research rate?
I mean, the most of the Which problems were all about education. It was almost like telling people that actually, yes, you have done and put this particular type of heating in, and that's made this difference. But again, there was one or two where there was actual honest mistakes done by energy assessors. So the key was always just talking to them. They all replaced them, and they actually ended up with the correct certificate at the end of that process.
What did you think about the suggestion that Michael made for change?
A Michael-specific suggestion, beg your pardon?
Yes, when I asked Michael what would he do, what does he think it tells us about the whole system? He was impressed really by how poor it was, by how poor the quality of what they had done was. He thinks that maybe these assessors are just not paid enough per hourly rate. Maybe they're just not trained enough to do this work. It's important work.
It's vital work. I mean, the key is actually, I 100% agree with Michael, is they're not paid enough, and the value of the product to be able to sell or to rent your property out, or in Michael's case, to understand what his home is doing, he knows it better than the energy certificate, it is about basically paying more for this product. It is more important, and I 100% agree with Michael in that respect.
So what changes have you asked for? I'm guessing you took part in the consultation. What do you want to change, apart from the fact you think the assessors should be more highly trained, more highly paid?
Yeah, well, we just want to see reform. We want the methodologies to be kept up to date, so they track the greening of the electric grid. We want the heat pumps to be recognised better in the methodologies. The whole suite of things, making the EPC more consumer-friendly so that people understand it. And I know England, Scotland and Wales are all doing slightly different things with their reform, and we're just delighted to see it. They just need to keep up to date and keep improving so that help people understand their homes.
When do you think that we're going to get a result from that big extended look into what they should do? Because often things go out to consultation, nothing happens.
Yeah, that tends to be in our space exactly the same. They are saying that next year that they're very much looking for this. There's a new model that's coming out that should be more accurate, and therefore we can piggyback on the back of that and have better looking certificates and more information back to members of the public, which is basically what it's all about. So I'm hoping that next year, but obviously you do need to see responses from the government and not sort of no noise coming back from them.
Stuart Fairley from Elmhurst Energy and Michael de Podesta, thanks both for that. Thank you. This is You and Yours, Radio 4's consumer programme. It's 25 minutes past 12 now. If you use a Windows computer, you've probably been asked to update to the latest version of the software that runs it, Windows 11. Microsoft has said it won't be providing security updates for computers running on the old Windows 10 from the 14th of October. The change has been coming for years, but many people have left it until just recently to try to make the switch. For some, it's been easy. For others, it's created all kinds of problems. So much so that some people are giving up and switching back to Windows 10. That's according to research from a data analytics company called StatCounter. Here are a couple of the listeners who've got in touch with us because they're having trouble updating fairly new computers to Windows 11. Val Hamilton lives in Nethy Bridge in the Scottish Highlands, and Keith Grinstead lives in Southend in Essex. Now, he told me about his laptop, what he uses it for.
It's about 3 or 4 years old. I use it for writing, I use it for running my business, and I build websites for people, and I've got very into using ChatGPT and I'm using that to create custom GPTs so that, for example, one of them that I've built at the moment, it's like a search engine for food banks. It's called Goodbye Hungry, and basically you enter your city name or postcode in there and it'll find the local food banks for you.
So obviously you're someone who understands computers and computer programs and software. Tell me what happened then when you tried to upgrade to Windows 11.
This has been going on for must be at least a year now. When I first got the notification, I thought, oh, that's good. Yeah, I'll do that. We'll go ahead with that. It started downloading files and then said, oh, there's not sufficient storage on your laptop to complete this. You'll need to free up space. So I then spent months trying to free up enough storage space on and this is storage space not to run Windows 11, but storage space for it to download the setup files it needs to download before it sets it up. And after months and months and months of trying to free up space, moving things onto other storage devices and what have you, I gave up because I could just never, ever free up enough space for it.
What problems has it caused you?
You can pause the Windows update for up to 7 days at a time. And then what it does, it then attempts to update it again. So it then starts downloading loads of files, then tells you it can't complete it. In the process, it fills up the storage space on your laptop. And then other programs start to say, well, there's not enough storage space to run. You need to free some storage space. It slows everything down, basically.
Val, I know you tried to update your laptop only a couple of weeks ago. Tell us what happened in your case.
I'm sort of the other end of the scale to Keith by the sound of it, and I just use my laptop for email and web browsing and stuff like that. So I'd been ignoring the Windows 11 updates until the deadline came, so I clicked on it and got the message, your computer is not suitable, and then you get a link which links you to places where you can go and buy a new one. And my computer, when I check back, is only, well, in my view, only 6 years old next month. Perfectly okay, and really I had no intention of replacing it. And I'm surprised that a big company like Microsoft are making us throw away perfectly adequate computers.
Val, have you had any professional advice? Do you know what it is about your computer that makes it unsuitable?
Well, I did. Well, no, I haven't had professional advice, but I googled and I can see on I have an Intel Core 13 7th gen, the sticker says, and you need at least an 8th gen. So basically, the processor isn't good enough, is my understanding.
So both of you came to you and yours with this problem, and we called on James Peckham for help with it. He's a reporter with PC Mag, and he's followed this whole Windows 11 update from the beginning. So James, generally, how has the update from 10 to 11 gone?
Both Keith and Val aren't particularly going to want to hear this, but this is actually one of the smoother updates from Microsoft's side. The actual software itself, when you do eventually switch to Windows 11, is running a lot better than we've seen in previous generations. Usually there's a lot of bugs on the newer software. That's the big talking point there. But as with any of these sort of upgrades, there's always consistent problems, and sadly with Keith and Val, they've had those different scales. So
what would you advise each of them to do? What do you think Keith should do in his situation?
Keith's situation in particular, I think that to me sounds like a bug more than anything else. You probably want to look into getting some professional advice with that. If you've deleted enough of your software to be able to get enough space for it, it should be working fine. And that's a real frustration, but I have seen multiple people online talk about that issue. It's been a consistent issue for many people. Microsoft doesn't seem to have really done anything about it. So I try and speak to professional advice for that. There are some workarounds for it. For example, you can have the software downloaded onto a USB and upload it that way rather than it being a download file to your computer. But that is a particularly cumbersome process, I would say.
And what about Val?
Sorry, Val, that is a very frustrating situation considering that laptop is only 6 years old. But you're right, it does sound like it is the processor's problem there. This is something that many people around the globe are suffering with. The one option you have for the foreseeable is the extended support updates, which Microsoft has just announced in the last couple of months. That will give you an extra year of using the software with security updates on board. You've got 3 options to be able to access that. You can either pay a fee, which is around £22 or so. It's usually whatever $30 is on today's exchange rate. Your second option is you can upload your system settings to OneDrive and you get access for free through that. Or there's also a third option, which is using something called Microsoft Reward Points. These are something you get when you download software directly from the Microsoft store. So say you download their browser Edge, you sometimes then get 500 points from that. If you had 1,000 of those points, you can trade that for a year of these extended security updates.
So when I said that Microsoft is not going to provide the security updates for computers running this older Windows 10 from the 14th of October, they've extended that now. So there now is another year, providing you're willing to pay.
Providing you're willing to pay, yes. So this won't be a default anymore. So it will still end on October 14th for anyone who hasn't acted. But if you're willing to do one of those 3 different options, then you will still get another year of security updates. But after that, that is it. There are then another 2 years of security updates for businesses, but people on personal accounts won't get any further.
What are the risks then of just sticking with Windows 10 and not buying in the extra security?
You open up your computer to multiple risks, really. It's really difficult to be able to tell. You could have an issue on day one, you could have an issue 10 years later. The security updates essentially mean that Microsoft are working flat out to try and make sure that any big problems that come up, any big hacks, anything like that are then taken care of on the software. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone to stick with that sort of software. It will work fine, but you are opening yourself up to risks. The other element here as well is as long as you're using older software, you're going to gently start losing access to other third-party software. So many other people that make software won't then updating their systems for that element.
So, Keith, what do you think you will do?
I think I'm just going to sit with what I've got because I'm very, very busy. I've heard what's been said there. I may have another try, but at the moment I'll just sit tight. I've got other security software on there. I'll just be very diligent until such time as I really do need to have to go and buy another laptop.
Val, what will you do?
Well, I have heard about these extended security updates. I think more information is gradually coming out and there's much more chat on the internet about it. And I did investigate it yesterday, but I still don't quite understand how to do it. So I'll have to look at that, because I'm certainly not buying a new computer.
James, obviously it's not very sustainable, is it, to have to keep replacing PCs that work perfectly well? Do you think computers become obsolete quicker than they used to?
We're now at a place where computers are lasting longer than they used to. I don't agree that this should be something that Microsoft should support for longer. We've seen longer support from some of its rivals, and there are other particularly techie options that people can go through. There are things like, this might be something Val wants to explore, but there are options like moving to a software called Linux, which supports for much longer than Windows does. And yeah, it's frustrating, especially in a world where we want to be using our gadgets for longer. And we're in a world where smartphones and tablets and those sorts of gadgets are able to last for longer because of longer security updates. It is frustrating that some laptops aren't able to keep up the pace.
That was James Peckham from PC Mag, Val Hamilton and Keith Grinstead speaking to me earlier on this morning. We contacted Microsoft and it told us anyone concerned should check the official blog on its website. Now, what has been your biggest DIY disaster? It's a temptation to try to do it yourself, particularly now when money's tight and prices are high. Our reporter Jay Younger spoke to some people outside a hardware store in North Manchester about the way ambition and ability don't always match up.
I've just done a dummy bathroom and I've cut some of the tiles short, but you've got filler and grout, haven't you? So
yeah. Yeah. What do you do? What's your trade?
Fix kitchen.
You fit kitchens?
Yeah.
So have you ever come across someone trying to fit their own kitchen?
I don't know if they fit it themselves or not, but it was just a bench with a sink on it. Everything's exposed and it's in the wrong places. I have to get them to buy a brand new kitchen. Fit all the cabinet and everything. Look more like kitchen. That was more like a warehouse sink. Yeah.
You know, when you go out to jobs, that more and more people are trying to, do things themselves.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's getting expensive. Everything, the material and the labor is getting expensive. So most people just try to learn from YouTube, try to do it themselves.
I'm 75 now, so I've been doing it a long time. So I've made plenty of mistakes along the way, but no major disasters.
Do you remember any of those mistakes? Any of the big ones?
Nothing that remarkable. Just think I wish I should have measured something a bit better or bought something a bit different.
I tried to put a shelf one day and I dig into deep and the electricity went off.
Oh no! Oh no!
And my husband nearly killed me.
How long did it go off for?
I had to call the electrician to come and fix it. That's how long.
Was it really expensive?
It was, yeah. They had to change the whole wire coming down to the floor.
Have you tried since to do anything?
Oh yeah. It doesn't stop me from trying it again.
Well, those ambitions, putting up a shelf, fitting a kitchen, doing your own tiling, they are as nothing compared with what some people try. In a survey of 2,000 people for GasSafe, some admitted being just plain reckless, trying to fit their own gas boilers and electrics without the legal qualifications, trying to fell trees. These attempts usually end up with an expensive professional fix. Well, often it's online videos that have provided the inspiration. Vicky Lee has a very popular DIY YouTube channel, The Carpenter's Daughter, with over 140,000 subscribers. And Nick Knowles is no stranger to home improvements on a budget. He presents the programme DIY SOS on BBC One. Hi both and welcome both. Nick, on your show, you and the team are often fixing the aftermath of DIY disasters or finishing jobs people started then abandoned. What are the worst disasters that you have seen?
Yeah, historically, our thing was an SOS put out by people who'd done DIY, and so I brought a bunch of qualified builders in to correct. And we'd seen all kinds of these people who'd taken a living room floor out because they had rotted joists, and then spent the next 8 years living on an earthen floor with rugs put on the floor. And there's another guy who took out a kitchen because it looked easy, and it is easy to take a kitchen out. Not so easy to put one back in. And so they'd been without a kitchen for something like 8 years when we went and did it. That was the early days. These days we're just into massive buildings and massive construction. But it remains the case that people get successful in one or two areas and then start to get overambitious about what they can do and start to attack things they shouldn't.
I mean, some people are never that successful, are they? Susie Tate has emailed to say, my husband admits to being useless at DIY, but that doesn't stop him. He cut the cord through he sliced the cord of the electric shears, cutting the hedge at the front of our house not once but twice. Undeterred, he finished it with the hand shears. At the end, the hedge looked like a bonsai, and everyone can see now into our living room. And she says he also turned a door around to make it easier to open, but put the hinges on the wrong side, so we ended up with no door. This one from Mike in Wells. I once decided to nail down a floorboard that was sticking up in the bedroom. I got a nail, just hammered it in, and then I heard an alarming hissing sound. I had nailed straight through a central heating pipe, and the water was spurting out. Shouldn't laugh, should I? But Nick, obviously they are disasters.
You make a very good point. I mean, some of these things are actually quite funny. Other ones not so much, like hammering into a wall where there's an electric cable.
Yeah.
Actually very dangerous. The guy who's cutting his own hedge and cuts through the cable.
Yeah.
Really important that you actually have a safety plug when you do use an extension lead to make sure that should you cut through the cable, that it immediately cuts the power so that you actually don't do yourself damage. And actually, some research recently by the Gas Safe Register shows that actually we're an incredibly confident country. There's something like 5 million of us would have a go at fixing our own car if we'd actually watched a YouTube video on how to do it. But more importantly, 2.5 million people would have a go at fixing their own dodgy boiler. Now, part of the reason that I'm this week is, I don't know if you know, but it's Gas Safety Week, and the reason for that is that we've got too many people thinking that they can have a go at things like fixing the boiler when the boiler stops. There's two things about that. One, it's actually probably illegal unless you're a Gas Safe registered engineer. And
it is illegal, yes.
It's very dangerous. I mean, you could endanger yourself, your family, and your property. And so part of Gas Safety Week is actually saying to everybody, look, have a go at various different things by all means, but don't mess about with gas, because your gas hob, your fireplace, your gas fire, and your gas boiler are things that must only be touched by people who are qualified to do it. And a lot of electrics, it's the same now. You shouldn't really be messing about with electrics too, and you need to get an electrician in to do it. I mean, with the one who actually drilled into the wall and hit the electrics, you can actually get things at your local DIY store now that you can hold on the wall, which will actually pick up where cables are, so you know before you drill that you haven't got water pipes or electric cables behind it, and they're quite handy. They're a few quid and definitely worth the investment rather than actually having to get an electrician or plumber in afterwards.
Vicky, with your how-to videos, you show some of the mistakes that you have made yourself. With a lot of online tutorials, though, do you think that the mistakes are edited out so it looks easier than it really is?
Yes, absolutely. And this is what I was going to say. It is far too easy to edit out mistakes and look like a genius or an expert. And I often, if I want to follow a certain type of project, I tend to hone in to experts who share the same sort of videos week on, week out, and that is their profession. So if I wanted to see plastering videos, I'd go to someone like On the Trowel. If I wanted to see sanding floors, it would be Danny Sandhouse. There's loads of particular things like that where they've taken the time to share their trade, which is great because, well, sometimes you do question, how are they not too busy at work? But I really don't trust somebody who shares different projects, a little bit like me in a way, but shares different projects each week without any mistakes. And that's why I keep the mistakes in, because I want people to save the money, learn from my painful errors, and set them up for success and not failure. What I can't stand about YouTube and social media is they praise success. Everybody likes a success story. They want short, sweet videos that are praised by the algorithm. And mine are probably not in the slightest bit trendy. They're long. I try to keep them thorough because I feel like I've suffered in the past and I really don't want somebody to go through the same mistakes when I've gone through them. And I don't care if somebody insults me. They might see this one woman having a go. This is the very first video. And because I've seen one mistake, they just instantly assume, oh, she's rubbish, or, she's embarrassing. But I turn up with these because I think you should own up and be proud of them. I could certainly name names where people want to look like a professional and like an expert each week. But I think we learn far more from mistakes compared to when something goes smoothly.
What's the worst thing, briefly, if you would, that you've done yourself?
Well, the most painful one more recently is self-leveling, because I tried to self-level a massive, 3 rooms in one go, and I really wanted to just doing patchwork screeds. And I watched hours and hours of YouTube videos on how to do it. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And I read all the reviews of the products, add more water to make it more fluid, do this, do that. And I think we made it worse than what it was in the first place. But that was a journey. And you know what? Admitting to these mistakes, it makes it more interesting for viewing. It's one of my most successful videos. And years ago, I laid a patio on sand. I'd done the We Control aggregate sand, and it was thick enough slabs so I could bed on top of it and they wouldn't break under pressure. And we were only walking on it. Anyway, the next bit of patio, I thought, right, I've done that. Let's try bedding it on mortar. And I did it in front of my garage door, which wasn't a typical garage door. It was a wooden one where it opened in two. And as I laid the last slab, I thought, I haven't checked to see. I knew one door opened fine, but I got it in my head because I never opened this other door. I got it in my head that they opened both the same way internally, and I realised, oh, I can't open this.
We'll leave you there with one door open, one door shut. Vicky Lee, Nick Knowles, thanks so much for that. Thank you for all your messages. Lots of them coming in. Well, now, a devastatingly simple example of how scammers can force their way into our everyday lives, with consequences not just for us, but for the people we're close to. It involves WhatsApp, the messaging app almost all of us use. WhatsApp is known for its high security. Here's Joanna. Her friends call her Yo, and she's a former BBC journalist from London. She's been telling Charival what happened to her.
I was rushing around like normal and I was paying for a necklace that I'd bought, and I got a phone call. I picked up the phone, didn't recognise the number, and a man on the phone said to me, "This is the food bank. I volunteer at the food bank. I try to volunteer once a week." He said to me, "We've got an online meeting tonight. You need an ID code. I'll send it to you." I didn't think that was that odd, because when you do various meetings, when I'm working, I need an ID. So I said, okay. In fact, I was just trying to get rid of him so I could pay for my necklace. Anyway, I then heard my messages beep. He rang again and I looked at my messages. There was a code and he said, "Read me out the code." I read out the code thinking it was an ID code, but clearly I was giving him the code for my WhatsApp account. I thought nothing of it until people started calling me and saying, "Yo, I think you've been scammed."
So that code was the authorization code that allowed him access into your WhatsApp account and then to take it over.
Correct.
How did he know you were part of a food bank?
Good question. I subsequently found out that somebody on our WhatsApp group at the food bank, they had been scammed. But I don't know. I tried to find out more information.
So you bought your necklace, you leave the shop. What happened then?
It must be probably about a couple of hours on. Somebody rang me and said, "Yo, I think you've been scammed." And then more and more people rang me, and then other people messaged me, not on WhatsApp. And then I tried to go into WhatsApp and I thought, I can't get into WhatsApp. What's going on?
Did they describe what they were seeing?
They did. And some of them were laughing, saying, one of them said, "I had to ring you because I thought this doesn't sound like Yo. Yo would never ask for money in this way." I then started putting a message out to everybody saying I've been scammed on WhatsApp. Do not give any money to anybody. Do not respond in conversation to anybody. I mean, I have a cousin in Canada and she saw the message and thought, oh, I'll give you some money, and did try to give me some money. I don't know the full details, but she said she tried to send it electronically via her bank, and they said that they were suspicious about this person's bank account and they would not transfer the money.
But of course, there was one person who did send money, and that's your friend Wes, and he's here with us listening to all this. Hello, Wes.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this program. So, we worked with Yo in the past. I know Yo is a very nice person. She's a person like I would fully trust, she's a lovely person, and everybody says that. So anyway, so there was like late evening, like around 8 p.m. When I got the message through WhatsApp from Yo. And I was like very happy because, there was like over 2 years, we haven't talked to each other. There was like short message like hello. Then I got a message like, I need you to send money to someone because I exceed my daily limit. Would you help me with that? And I was kind of like, it was like late evening. I was tired, busy, and plus like another question, like when someone asked me for help, and also like the message was saying, I pay you back the first thing in the morning. And so I asked her, how much? And the person replied, £500. So I said, yes, so please send me the details and I'll be more happy to help you, right? More than happy to help you. So I tried to call Yo and I got a message, I call you back, I'm busy. So I sent £1 first, just to make sure like that the money will get through. And the person sent me back, you're supposed to send £500, not £1. So that was kind of like ringing like the bell in my head. Like, well, you never talk like that. But, I thought she's busy. She's dealing with some problem, because she needs help. So I sent $4.99 reminding like right away. Then I tried to call 20 minutes later, and the person was sending the message, I'm busy, call you back. And I said, well, wait a minute, this is not Yo. I mean, she never act like this, So I decided to use like different platform to communicate with Yo. As soon as I opened her Facebook, there was a message, I've been scammed on WhatsApp, do not send any money. I said, oh my God. Silly Wesley, but I tried to help. And so I called Yo on Messenger, and Yo answered, and the first thing says, Wes, do not send any money. I hope you didn't send any money. I've been scammed. I said, Yo, I did send. She said, oh my God.
I was devastated. Wes was the first one to call me, and I can't tell you how upset. And then you do that rewind of what you did, and feeling so foolish and terrible that this very lovely friend, colleague had been taken in by this person. Of course, I wanted to pay him back, Wes back, because I just felt it was so unfair. But Wes kept saying, Yo, we're both victims in this.
Have you paid Wes back?
I paid Wes half, and now when I get my money on the 15th, I'm paying him. He's arguing with me about it. I would not feel clean if I didn't pay him back. So Wes, you are getting paid back, and don't argue.
WhatsApp has a feature called two-step verification. Now, it's optional, and it means that you can choose a PIN number yourself that only you know, and you need that PIN to change the device attached to your WhatsApp account. Have you any idea if you had that two-step verification?
No, I didn't. I've had it so long and I can't remember.
So if you forget your PIN number, you need to wait 7 days to reset it. But that also means that if you don't have the two-step verification set up, a criminal who accesses your account can set up that PIN number themselves, which is why you got locked out of the account.
Correct. When I asked WhatsApp via email, can you delete my account? Just standard messages kept being sent to me via email. I was extremely disappointed. But we need WhatsApp. It's our social lives, our work lives, everything revolves around it. It made me realise how dependent I was, and that annoyed me too.
So that was Joanna and her friend Wesley talking to Shari. Listening with Jake Moore. He's a cybersecurity expert for the company ESET. Jake, this is a sneaky one, isn't it? She had a phone call from a criminal who knew enough about her to know that she was involved as a volunteer with a food bank. Now, they said that she would be receiving a code for a Zoom meeting. Aside from tricking your friends into handing over money, how much damage can a criminal do if they get into your WhatsApp?
Yeah, so this is a very clever scam that these criminals know that they can infiltrate multiple people at once, and they know that they work so well with the psychology behind it. By already telling her that she's going to receive a code, she probably missed the important sign that said, do not share this code with anyone else, which surrounds the one-time passcode, this 6-digit code that pops up. And then by giving that away, of course, she wanted to get rid of whoever it was on the call to get on with her purchase. But unfortunately, once they're in, then they can cause some serious damage, because as we don't tend to verify who we're speaking with, because it just the messages sit into the threads that you've got with those people already. If it even sounds like them, then people like Wes, unfortunately, can fall for it. But Wes did the right thing by going to a different platform. It's always advisable for any sort of request of money or any personal information or sensitive information.
Now, Joanna didn't have access to her WhatsApp account for 7 days. Explain how that happens.
Yeah, so this is just part of their two-step verification feature. So I advise everyone to go into their WhatsApp, go into the settings and click on two-step verification and enable it. It's not on by default, which we in the tech industry have a real problem with this, with these huge platforms, because they don't turn it on by default for everyone. Add that 6-digit PIN. I actually hadn't already done that.